What's up, everybody? I'm back again reviewing another Street Fighter movie. This time, Street Fighter Alpha, the movie, based off the Street Fighter Alpha game. I just recently reviewed Street Fighter 2, the animated film, which is really good. This seems, in my personal opinion, a slight, well, not even a slight, like a moderate step down. Still roughly enjoyable, but there was some stuff that, in terms of plot elements, I probably wouldn't have chosen personally, but it was serviceable. We got Ryu, voiced by Skip Stolrak, Ken, voiced by Steve Bloom, Shun, like a character invented for this film, voiced by Mona Marshall, Chun-Li, voiced by Leah Sargent, Dr. Saller, which I can't help but think about. I'm pretty sure that's the same name used in Resident Evil, which is probably not too far off because they're both scientists, evil scientists. Voiced by Peter Lorre, Rosanov Salderbot, voiced by Tom Weiner, Akuma, voiced by Keith Burgess. Those are the main characters, but we get other side characters like Sakura. Well, she's really not even really like secondary characters. She could easily be part of like the main line of characters because she often been her little arc is just her trying to follow and find Ryu because she is like a huge fangirl. She's voiced by Michelle Rolfe, Rose, voiced by Carolyn Hennessy, Zangief, voiced by Joe Ramosa, who I did not care how they depicted Zangief in this, like some idiot brute, compared to Street Fighter 2 animated film where he actually has like the personality what we expect from Zangief. Here it is such a downgrade in kind of like a huge disrespect for the character itself. You got Adon, voiced by R. Martin Klein, Vega, voiced by Richard Cancino, Birdie, voiced by Michael McCarty, Dan, voiced by Bob Peppenbrook, which I'm shocked that neither Ken nor Ryu acknowledge Dan, who utilizes similar styles as them to a lesser degree, but it's just like there's like zero acknowledgement. I'm not sure if there was like a whole thing back in the 90s where, you know, it was like a joke where Ken and Ryu, because Ken and Ryu didn't train with Dan in most iterations. It always seems like I might be doing, it was like a Mandela effect maybe, I'm not sure, but to my knowledge, you know, there's only been certain iterations where Dan has trained with Ken and Ryu, but because Dan has like a personal vendetta because I'm pretty sure it was Sagat or somebody who killed his father and he wanted to train, you know, but he couldn't train as well as Ryu and Ken. But it's just like he's kind of like a joke character, but there are fans of his out there of his, but it's just like, oh. And in the lore, he and Sakura, you know, often team up and what have you, but it's just that I don't know. There's got to be some level of acknowledgement of this character that, you know, utilizing. It's not many people utilizing the same fighting style as you. It's really Sakura later, but only because Ryu trained her a little bit. It's kind of like a pseudo mentee thing going on, where Ken, he later trains this Brazilian kid. I forgot his name, but he's in like one of the earlier Street Fighter games. uh, so he roughly used a similar fighting style. There's Akuma, there's Goken, and then there's Dan. So there's only like a handful of people that actually have beyond Ken and Ryu that actually utilizes the same fighting style. How do you get no acknowledgement of Dan? This is weird. But this is not really. I don't know why you input Dan in this if you're not going to have some level of acknowledgement. That seems kind of like a waste. This could have been anybody. Anyway, and we got Saddam, voiced by R. Martin Klein as well. So, Ken, Ryu and Ken go back to their place of, their, I would say, not place of birth, but where they trained with Goken back in the day, after years away. Because at this point in time, they were left to believe their master died because of Akuma, but later on, it was kind of retconned where after Akuma fought Goken and seemingly killed him, because those two were brothers, Akuma uses his special move, what was that instant helm murder technique? What was that? Sir. The Shin Goku Satsu, in order to obliterate one's soul. But later on, it was kind of retcon where Goken used the power of nothingness to pretty much temporarily remove his soul or something like that, dissipate his soul or something like that. So what Akuma was obliterating was essentially like an empty husk, which allows Goken to survive. But because how temporary it was, leaves Ken and Ryu, who showed up soon after that fight was over, to a seemingly dead teacher. But of course his soul eventually came back, and he just left it where it's like, his students, under the assumption that he was dead, was kind of like a D move, honestly. But it was some kind of other lesson he wanted to teach his students. Whatever. Still like a D move. Anyway, while coming back, Ryu has been struggling with the Dark Cardo, which is slowly, trying to take over. Is something that's happening with Ryu unwillingly compared to Akuma, who embraced it fully, because he thinks it was kind of like a natural progression of the Asasuken. However, it's not something that Goken wanted to embrace at all, and didn't want his students to be encouraged by. But because Ryu unknowingly tapped into it because his skills was increasing, he's struggling to, because once he unlocked that door, there's no shoving the genie back in the bottle. So he's struggling with that. All the while, we meet up with this young kid who is seemingly Ryu's younger brother, who recently passed, and want him to seek out his older brother Ryu. Of course, Ken is skeptical, as anybody would be, but Ryu decided to take on this kid anyway, saw he had some skills and wanted to train him properly. Which is a cool thing to see Ryu in like a mentor position, which is kind of like a natural progression of the character. We see that with him and Sakura down the line, which I would like to see a lot more of between these two. Which, by the way, earlier on in the film, Ryu helped Chun-Li stop these criminals, and Ryu was just so good he can dodge bullets effortlessly to say this young kid was taken hostage. Sakura witnessed it and instantly became obsessed with Ryu and went and tried to find him so she can be trained by him. Which I wouldn't say it went nowhere, but you know, she eventually, in like different iterations of the video game, she does eventually find him, and she gets trained a little bit, and then you know, she has her own little arcs, but it's just like, you know, it's just like a unofficial student of Ryu. It's just fun to see it there, but it doesn't really affect all the story beats all that much. But it just leads to a nice little lesson coming from Ken Masters, of all people, to tell her, it's like, after she gets injured, it's like, why do you fight? Because it's not something that we take lightly. When we go onto this road of becoming like a great martial artist, it's essentially like a life lesson for not just with martial arts, but with anything that you pursue, that you want to make a huge part of your life, whether it's like a particular career or a particular, like, sport or whatever. There's a commitment to this that you should not take lightly. And if you're sure about this, you gotta take. It's not just going to be all pros. There's going to be some hardships and some sacrifices that you're going to have to make, because this is a commitment. And people like Ryu and Ken take this kind of thing seriously. And he's not crushing this girl's dreams, but he gives her a healthy dose of reality and see how committed she is. And fairly recently, when I got into like acting and all this other stuff, it's something that like I know in the bottom of my soul that like I wanted to do, because of course there are perks, but it's also still a career. It's something you don't take lightly. There's lessons. There's like there's training. There's all this other stuff that it involves like a bit of sacrifice. That's crazy commitment. You look at something like any sport that you can think of to be. It was like Shaq had a thing, like a discussion here, like a story he told on a podcast about a talk he had with one of his sons, where he said he wants to be like his father and get into like commit to basketball, and he tells his son like, hey, if you want to pursue this, hey, I back you, but are you willing to accept the sacrifices that you'll have to make in order to be great? because remember all those Christmases, that I missed, certain ceremonies that I had to miss. That is the sacrifice I had to make in order to be in the position I am, to give the life that you guys have growing up. I had to miss some of your Christmases. I had to miss some of your birthdays. I had to miss certain whatever celebration that you was doing because I was away, playing basketball to earn a living, to give you the life I never had kind of situation. That's something like anybody needs to learn, and this is what Ken is essentially teaching Sakura in this moment. There's a commitment to the role that she is idolizing, specifically coming from Ryu, but she has to be prepared to accept those. But we see at the end where she's training and everything like that, and she's not treating it like she doesn't treat it like it's a joke, but she treats it like it's like all fun and games. But she sees how committed she is, and she's taking it very seriously, inspiring the next generation essentially. I like that part. But about as much as I care for, I kind of wish they did more with her. Matter of fact, the role of Shun should have just gone to Sakura altogether, and none of this whole would-be brother situation, because that's not really his brother. It was all a facade, because there's like a mad scientist, Dr. Saller, who organizes this fighting tournament that Ken want to participate in. While Ryu is struggling with the Dark Ardo, he made Ken promise that if he fails to control it and it overtakes him, he needs Ken to be the one to take him out, because he will probably be the only one who's capable of doing it, who knows him and the whole situation thoroughly enough to know how to deal with it. All the while, where Ryu and Shun is about to get accosted by these local thugs, they easily take him out, but Ryu notices that Shun is has some kind of sadistic nature that he had to put a stop to immediately. And this kid somehow is tapping into similar Dark Hado, stuff that, Ryu is dealing with. I don't know what exactly this kid is and how he tapped into this kind of thing. It has to have to do with some kind of science thingamajig, because some kind of orphan that Saller took off the street, experimented on, in order to join fighters that he can harvest their powers to infuse with his cybernetics and stuff like that, whatever. He pretty much draining these fighters dry. He's organized this tournament where we see all these fighters come into play. In this abandoned building where this fight's supposed to happen, the kid tries to fight Zangief. This is stupid, and why do you let this kid sit there and wander off into a fight when she's not ready at all? And it wasn't until Zangief put this kid down where Ryu eventually had to step in, and the Dark Ardo starts taking over. Eventually, the Ramasov robot jumps in, and Ryu embrace the Dark Ardo to obliterate this sucker. Shun eventually gets kidnapped, and Ryu starting to theorize that Akuma might be this kid's father that he was alluding to. So he goes to not only talk about that with Akuma, because he always knew where Akuma was, because Akuma is always waiting for Ryu to show up, because he wants Ryu to tap into that dark side. He wants to like fight Ryu at the fullest, because he is obsessed with fighting. That's what he prioritizes more than anything. And he always wants a fair fight at the top of a fighter's game. He embraced pretty much the demonic side of the fighting technique. That's why he looks like, his next kind of evolution or transformation, which is dubbed Oni, which is like a Japanese demon. So it's kind of like he just fully embraces the monster, essentially. Ryu not coming to fight, but he just must answers. Akuma just, he didn't say it directly, but the way he explains to Ryu as he's walking away, he doesn't care about anything, not anyone, except for fighting and taking the Dark Hado to the next level, kind of thing. So it's pretty much letting Ryu know, it's like, this kid's not related to Akuma, not related to me. This is all a trap, because Sailor organizes these tournaments to kidnap the best fighters, drain their skills dry to leave them as like, walking, zombies with no personality, all infused into his like cybernetics. Ryu, Ken, Chun-Li, and the other fighters show up. They sneak in to, and rescue Birdie, who's about to get drained dry of his fighting capabilities. And Ken, Ryu, Chun-Li, and Birdie try to fight off one of the robots, but they all get mollywopped. Chun-Li done about to get her legs split open, like ripping open a turkey in half by the legs. Eventually, Ryu shows up to fight this thing, and inside is Shun, trying to goad Ryu into tapping into his Dark Hado so it can be as analyzed. Ryu knocks out Shun out of the body of this mechanical thing. Dr. Sailor takes on Ryu with the cybernetics and stuff like that, but Ryu chooses not to be influenced by the Dark Hado, takes on Sailor, destroys him completely, but in the midst of all that, because of what Dr. Sailor did, Shun ends up dying, admits that not really related, but he kind of wish he was. All the other fighters, they were rescued, and all the innocent people that was collected, they were rescued, and all the fighters end up going their separate ways. And that's pretty much how the movie ends. Yeah, I mean, this was said to be like, not the weakest, but not the most like high regarded Street Fighter film. I wanted to see it for myself because I've never seen this before, and yeah, I can see why. I think it would have been best if they took it out the whole Shun arc thing altogether, because that was like a waste. It was useless. It could have just been dedicated, since you're introducing Sakurai here. She should have filled this role here, not as like a relation to Ryu or anybody else, but just like a student who wants to be taught by Ryu because she idolizes him. Sakura is like the fans of Ryu in the real world. She embodies that essentially. Every young kid wanted to be trained by who's a fan of Street Fighter would love to be trained by Ryu. That is Sakura's role. She should have fulfilled that, because she is wasted in this. She is completely wasted in this film for this know-nothing character You know what Shun is? He is the functional equivalent to uh, uh, that guy in the rebooted Mortal Kombat film, the bland character. Uh, what's his name? He's so bland I can't even remember his name. Um, Cole Young. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was like, yeah, Cole Young. That's what Shun is, the functional equivalent to that. So, like, nothing of a character. Could have been dedicated, for somebody like Sakura to fill, since you're going to introduce her anyway. And you can still kept that whole Dr. Salad stuff. It just, he still can just utilize the whole his own little tournament thing to find good fighters, kidnap them, and to eventually absorb that power. You didn't need that whole Shun thing. It was probably my biggest gripe. And this is like, a couple of years after Street Fighter 2, the animated film, and Chun-Li acting like she doesn't know who Ryu is, and it's like, this is our first time. I know it's like a soft reboot or something like that, but making it seem like she never met this guy before. You have a big old mission involving him. Well, they didn't actually meet face to face, but she read his profile in Street Fighter 2. So here, she acted like she never even seen this guy's face, let alone his name before. That is like weird. Anyway, yeah, not a fan of this, honestly. Don't know how many people out there who are, but in any case, this is my thoughts. I don't hate this film. I still was entertained, but there's some things I would have just taken out altogether, and it probably would have elevated this film a whole lot more. I'm curious to know what your guys' thoughts. You can leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys think. Next week, I have a couple of more Street Fighter films I want to review. But I'll leave that as a surprise. But take care. I'll see you guys in a little bit as I get started on Borderlands 4. I got it. So I'm going to get a jump on that, play that for a while. And, yeah. I will see you guys later. Peace.